pressure. And he never brought it to set.
Fighter jets screaming past at 500 miles per hour. Tom Cruise in aviators with a grin that definitely violated at least 3 military regulations. And a soundtrack that made Danger Zone the official theme song of highway on-ramps everywhere. Top Gun hit theaters in May of 1986 and made being a fighter pilot look cooler than being a rock star. Part action blockbuster, part Navy commercial, part 2-hour advertisement for sunglasses that were literally dying before this movie saved them. Tom Cruise played Lieutenant Pete Maverick Mitchell, a pilot who had way more swagger than sense. Anthony Edwards was Goose, the best friend whose ending still makes grown adults cry into their popcorn. Kelly McGillis played Charlie, the instructor who somehow found Maverick's creepy bar serenade charming instead of restraining order-worthy. And Val Kilmer, who's still alive despite what that intro might have suggested, turned a teeth snap into a career-defining character moment. Directed by Tony Scott, produced by Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, Top Gun made $357 million on a $15 million budget. Read that again. $15 million total. Today, we're going inverted for 15 facts that'll change how you watch this movie. Before we buzz the tower, smash that like button and subscribe to TV Time Capsule for deep dives into the movies that shaped the 60s to 80s. Now, let's hit the afterburners with number 15. Number 15. A magazine article launched a $350 million blockbuster. In May 1983, journalist Ehud Yoneh published an article in California magazine called Top Guns. Not a screenplay, not a pitch, just a magazine feature about real Navy pilots going through the actual Top Gun program at Miramar. Yoneh embedded himself with 2 aviators for 5 weeks, watching them push $38 million jets to the edge while competing for nothing but bragging rights. The article had this line that stuck with producers. "The need for speed is like a drug." Sound familiar? Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, who were both apparently very familiar with drugs at this point in their careers, read it and saw gold. They bought the rights within 60 days. Then nobody wanted to make it. David Cronenberg passed. John Carpenter said no. Paramount executives called it a movie about guys in planes. Like that was somehow a bad thing. Simpson and Bruckheimer burned through 5 writers before Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr. finally cracked it. And here's where it gets messy. Fast forward to 2022. Yoneh had passed away, but his widow and son noticed something interesting. Paramount's rights to the original article had technically expired in 2020. Top Gun, Maverick came out in 2022. See the problem? They sued for copyright infringement, claiming Paramount made a $1.5 billion sequel without paying for the source material. Paramount's defense? The sequel is so different from the article that it doesn't count as derivative. The court agreed. Paramount walked away clean. Turns out the most unrealistic thing about Top Gun wasn't the physics-defying stunts. It was Hollywood's contract lawyers. Number 14. Paramount paid $1.8 million to rent the Navy. Here's a fun math problem. You're making a $15 million movie. The military wants $7,600 per hour to rent you an F-14 Tomcat. Each flight scene needs multiple takes. How fast do you go broke? Answer: surprisingly slowly, because Paramount had leverage. By the time production wrapped, the studio had paid the Pentagon $1.8 million for jets, aircraft carriers, and access to Miramar. That's 12% of the entire budget just to borrow the Navy's toys. And somehow, it was the deal of the century. Want to know why? A single F-14 cost $38 million to build. Paramount got to crash zoom past aircraft carriers with multiple Tomcats for the price of half of one plane. Try recreating that with models and whatever Commodore 64 CGI they had in 1986. But here's the kicker nobody talks about. The Navy didn't just rent equipment. They paid Paramount $1.2 million in technical consultation fees. Read, product placement money. The Navy literally paid to be in their own recruitment film. Both sides knew exactly what they were doing. Paramount got authentic military hardware that made the movie look like it cost $100 million. The Navy got the most effective enlistment tool since Uncle Sam started pointing at people. It's not product placement when you pay someone to advertise your job. It's just genius. Number 13. Tom Cruise was the fifth choice for Maverick. Tom Cruise as Maverick feels like destiny now. In 1985, he wasn't even on the short list. Matthew Modine was choice number 1. Fresh off Birdie, Hollywood loved him. He read the Top Gun script and called it Pentagon propaganda. Hard pass. Patrick Swayze wanted it, but was locked into Youngblood. Emilio Estevez said no because playing second to a jet felt like a downgrade after The Breakfast Club. John Cusack was 19 and looked 15. And yes, Scott Baio, Chachi from Happy Days, got a serious look. Imagine Chachi saying, "I feel the need for speed and try not to laugh." Tom Cruise was pick number 5. Maybe 6 if you count the week they considered Michael J. Fox. His first audition was a catastrophe. Cruise was deep into filming Legend, which meant long hair, pale makeup, and costumes that looked like a fantasy LARPer's fever dream. He walked into the audition looking like he'd gotten lost on the way to a Ren fair. Producers couldn't even finish the read. They thanked him and moved on. Second audition, Cruise showed up in a leather jacket and Ray-Ban aviators he'd bought that morning. Different person. Don Simpson allegedly stood up and said, "Stop. That's him. That's Maverick." Cruise signed for $2 million. Not bad for a 23-year-old. Except he negotiated 0 back-end points. No profit sharing. Top Gun made $357 million worldwide. Cruise's check stayed at $2 million flat. He missed out on an estimated $25 million. After Top Gun, Cruise never signed another contract without back-end. The role that made him a megastar also gave him the most expensive education in Hollywood accounting. Number 12. The cockpit scenes were shot in a parking lot. Those white-knuckle cockpit scenes where Maverick's face is dripping sweat under 7 Gs of pressure. Shot in a parking lot behind Burbank Airport with a guy standing off-screen spritzing Tom Cruise with a water bottle. Not Miramar. Not even close to a jet. Burbank. Tony Scott wanted everything in real F-14S, authentic audio, authentic vibrations, authentic terror. One problem. Between the engine roar, wind scream, and radio static, you couldn't understand a single word the actors said. The Navy was willing. The actors were game. The audio was garbage. So the production built a replica F-14 cockpit, mounted it on a gimbal, a fancy motorized platform that shakes on command, and filmed in front of blue screens with guys manually rocking the rig back and forth. Every time you see Maverick straining against G-forces, that's Tom Cruise on a mechanical bull for pilots, while a PA sprays him like a misbehaving cat. Now, the actors did fly in real F-14ES once, for the experience. Tom Cruise got violently airsick on flight number 1. The pilot's call sign? Bozo. Not a joke. An actual Navy pilot named Bozo took Tom Cruise up and put him through every barrel roll and split S in the book. Cruise puked within 15 minutes. Val Kilmer threw up. Rick Rossovich threw up. Kelly McGillis went up exactly once, came back the color of old lettuce, and said, "Never again." Only Anthony Edwards never got sick. Goose had an iron stomach. But here's where it gets wild. All those exterior shots, the jets chasing each other through the sky, the cockpit reflections, the horizon spinning, 100% real. Real Navy pilots flew real dogfight patterns, while cameras bolted to a Learjet and an A-7 intruder filmed everything. One of those pilots was Scott Altman. He flew the buzzing the tower scene. 9 takes, 9 separate times screaming past the Miramar control tower at illegal altitude, while Tony Scott yelled faster over the radio. Altman also flew the inverted sequence. When Maverick flips the bird at the enemy pilot, that's Scott Altman's middle finger, not Tom Cruise's. Years later, Altman became a NASA astronaut and commanded 2 space shuttle missions. The guy who broke flight rules for a movie went on to command spacecraft. Only in America. Number 11. The volleyball scene cost $50,000, and Paramount wanted it deleted. Tony Scott didn't film the volleyball scene to advance the plot. He filmed it because shirtless men covered in baby oil looked good in magic hour sunlight, and he'd spent a decade directing commercials that sold products based purely on vibes. The scene cost $50,000. 3 days of filming. PAs with spray bottles constantly misting the actors with water and oil to get that glistening golden hour sheen. The goal? Make Navy pilots look like they'd just stepped out of a Soloflex ad. Paramount executives watched the dailies and lost their minds. We're making a fighter jet movie, not a cologne commercial. Cut it. Scott refused. He knew exactly what he was doing. The movie needed something for the audience that didn't care about MiG-28s and couldn't tell an aileron from an elevator. He delivered 90 seconds of pure homoerotic 80s testosterone set to Kenny Loggins. It became one of the most iconic scenes in the film. Here's what nobody mentions. The scene accidentally became a gay cultural touchstone. Quentin Tarantino dissected it in The Celluloid Closet, calling Top Gun a story about a man's struggle with his own homosexuality. Film scholars have written actual academic papers about the male gaze in this scene. Number 10. Ray-Ban was dying until Maverick saved it. In 1983, Ray-Ban aviators were in trouble. The brand was selling 18,000 pairs a year. 18,000 total, nationwide. They'd been designed in 1937 for actual military pilots. By the 80s, they were what your dad wore to embarrass you at the grocery store. Bulky, outdated, aggressively uncool. Ray-Ban had caught a break in 1983 when Tom Cruise wore Wayfarers in Risky Business. That saved one product line, but aviators were still circling the drain. Then Maverick put them on. Within 7 months of Top Gun's release, aviator sales jumped 40%. Not 40 units, 40%. Malls turned into Maverick cosplay auditions. Teenagers stood in front of mirrors trying to figure out if they had the face to pull off gold-rimmed pilot shades. For summer 1986, those glasses stopped being eyewear and became an attitude. You weren't buying sunglasses. You were buying the confidence to flip off a MiG while going 400 knots inverted. What made it work? Authenticity. The costume designer didn't pick aviators because Ray-Ban paid for placement. They picked them because that's what real Navy pilots wore. The brand didn't pay a dime for the exposure. By 1987, Ray-Ban was selling millions of pairs annually. By the 90s, aviators were a global icon. And in 2022, when Top Gun, Maverick hit theaters, sales spiked again. 36 years later, the same effect. Sometimes saving a dying brand just takes the right actor, the right movie, and the right, I'm about to do something incredibly stupid, grin. Number 9. Val Kilmer tried to sabotage his audition. Val Kilmer thought Top Gun was beneath him. He'd just done Top Secret and Real Genius, quirky comedies that let him be weird and smart. Top Gun looked like military propaganda written by someone who thought depth meant flying lower. He told his agent, no, hard pass. One problem. Kilmer had signed a 3-picture deal with Paramount. The studio exercised the contract. He had to audition. So Kilmer showed up in oversized green Australian shorts, read his lines like he was ordering coffee, and gave the energy of someone at the DMV. His plan? Make them not want him. Paramount cast him anyway. Kilmer was furious. That anger became the character. On set, Kilmer stayed in character off-camera. He avoided Tom Cruise. He ate separately. He made it clear that Iceman thought Maverick was dangerous and reckless, and Val Kilmer thought Tom Cruise's whole golden boy thing was annoying. Whether that was acting or genuine resentment? Nobody knows, but it worked. Their scenes don't feel scripted. They feel like two people who legitimately don't like each other. Kilmer also built the character from nothing. The script barely gave Iceman any personality. So Kilmer invented a backstory. Distant father, approval-seeking overachiever. Man who needed to be perfect because anything less was failure. And that teeth chomp? Pure Kilmer. He later said he imagined Iceman's dad chewing ice like a wild dog. That tiny, predatory snap toward Maverick turned a flat rival into something genuinely unsettling. By the end of filming, Kilmer had changed his mind. He loved Tony Scott's energy. Iceman became one of his defining roles. When Top Gun, Maverick was in development, and nobody called him, Kilmer didn't wait. He wrote scenes himself and sent them to Tom Cruise. The actor who tried to fail his audition fought to come back 36 years later. Number 8. The enemy planes were American jets in disguise. The Soviet MiG-28s in Top Gun are about as Russian as a Costco hot dog. In 1986, you couldn't just call up Moscow and ask to borrow military hardware for your Tom Cruise movie. So, Hollywood did what it does best. Faked it. The enemy jets were Northrop F-5 Tiger IIs, American-built planes the Navy already used as aggressor aircraft in training. They painted them flat black, slapped red stars on the tails, and called them MiG-28s. Next to the massive F-14 Tomcats, the smaller F-5s looked like scrappy underdogs, which made for better visuals. In reality, the enemy was just the Navy's sparring partner wearing a disguise. Here's the tell. Real Soviet MiGs were odd-numbered. MiG-15, MiG-21, MiG-23, MiG-29. Naming the bad guy MiG-28 was the screenwriter equivalent of winking at the camera. Aviation nerds clocked it immediately. But the fake designation gave the script freedom. MiG-28 doesn't exist, then it can do whatever the scene needs. 4G negative dives, sustained inverted flight, maneuvers that would rip the wings off a real jet. The movie also never names the enemy. No Soviet Union, no hammer and sickle, just the enemy, with red stars and vaguely threatening vibes. That kept Top Gun from dating itself. The conflict stayed timeless. Us versus them. Skill versus skill. Ironically, using F-5s made the movie more realistic. The real Top Gun school used F-5s as adversary aircraft for decades. When Maverick studies enemy jet silhouettes in class, he's literally looking at the same planes Hollywood repainted for the dogfight. The scariest villain in Top Gun was an American jet in cosplay, with a made-up name that any pilot would recognize as fake in 5 seconds. Number 7. The inverted shot defies physics. The inverted shot, Maverick upside down above a MiG, giving the finger while Goose snaps a Polaroid, is the most iconic image in Top Gun. It's also completely impossible. Show this to a real F-14 pilot, and they'll explain very patiently how the twin-tail stabilizers would shred both planes into confetti before you got within 50 feet. The aerodynamic turbulence alone would slam the jets together like magnets. And even if you solved the geometry, you've got 15 seconds before fuel starvation kills the engine. Inverted flight isn't sustainable. You'd flame out and drop like a $38 million lawn dart. So how'd they shoot it? They lied beautifully. According to Dave Baranek, a real Top Gun instructor who flew for the film, the F-5 pilots playing the MiG crew flew alongside a camera-equipped Learjet. On cue, they looked up and acted terrified. There was nothing above them. The inverted F-14 was added later via optical effects, one of maybe 3 composite shots in the whole movie. The most legendary moment in Top Gun is 2 actors staring at empty sky while a director yells, "Look scared." The dialogue makes it worse. Maverick brags about a 4G negative dive. Physics-literate people winced. If the F-14's inverted pulling positive Gs, the MiG would need to pull negative Gs to match. The human body blacks out around -3 Gs. Your eyes would hemorrhage. But Tony Scott didn't care. He wasn't making a documentary. He needed an image that screamed danger and swagger. He got it. The fact that it's physically impossible just made it more memorable. Number 6. Tom Cruise learned motorcycle in 3 days. The 1984 Kawasaki GPZ 900R Ninja was the first production motorcycle to crack 150 miles per hour. Top speed, 151. Liquid-cooled inline-4 engine. 16 valves. It was less a motorcycle and more a land-based missile you could buy at a dealership. When Maverick races an F-14 down the runway, he's on the fastest street-legal bike on Earth. Here's the problem. Tom Cruise had never been on a motorcycle, ever. Production needed him riding in 3 days. He showed up at House of Motorcycles in El Cajon, California, where the staff taught him clutch control in the parking lot. 72 hours later, he was doing 60 miles per hour runs on a runway with no helmet, because Tony Scott thought helmets looked uncool. Every mom in America wrote angry letters. Insurance companies had aneurysms. But it gets better. Kawasaki's marketing director, Mike Vaughn, got a call from Paramount asking for 3 free bikes in exchange for exposure. Vaughn had been burned before by productions that borrowed bikes and returned them destroyed, if at all. He offered dealer cost instead. Paramount threatened to use Honda's. Vaughn gave them Honda's phone number. Paramount bought the bikes from a San Diego dealer and stripped the Kawasaki logos off, leaving only the Ninja badge visible. Didn't matter. After Top Gun dropped, Ninja became synonymous with fast. Kawasaki's sport bike sales exploded. The GPZ 900R had a 2-year waitlist. 1 3-day crash course and 0 product placement money created a marketing phenomenon that lasted decades. Number 5. Kelly McGillis stood in trenches to look shorter. Kelly McGillis is 5 feet 10 inches. Tom Cruise is, officially, 5 feet 7 inches. Unofficially, closer to 5 feet 6 inches without shoes. In 1985, this was a crisis. Hollywood had one ironclad rule. Leading men must look taller than their female co-stars, always. The production deployed an entire arsenal. McGillis wore flats in every scene. Tom stood on apple boxes hidden behind furniture. The bed in the love scene was angled so the camera looked up at Cruise. Bar scenes kept Tom standing while Kelly sat. When camera tricks didn't work, they dug trenches, actual trenches, on the Miramar tarmac. If you watch closely, Kelly McGillis is standing slightly below ground level in multiple scenes. They dug holes for her to stand in so Tom Cruise looked taller. The irony? Their chemistry was electric. McGillis later said Cruise's intensity intimidated her, which made the dynamic feel real. Cruise admitted, "Kelly intimidated me, and I liked that." The height war became Hollywood legend. Every Tom Cruise movie since has used the same bag of tricks. Mission: impossible films keep his co-stars in flats. Jack Reacher ignored the source material's 6 feet 5 inches description entirely. McGillis came out as a lesbian years later and reflected on the role. Playing a straight love interest opposite Tom was a challenge. But it was the 80s. We did what the script required. The role made her famous. The trenches were real. And somewhere, a PA with a shovel earned their paycheck. Number 4. The love scene was shot 5 months after filming Wrapped. The Take My Breath Away love scene, drenched in blue light and slow-motion romance, wasn't in the original movie. Test audiences in New York and L.A. loved Top Gun. Chicago audiences walked out saying, "Where's the love story?" The studio panicked. They'd wrapped production. Everyone had moved on. Tom Cruise was shooting The Color of Money for Scorsese. Kelly McGillis was on another film and had dyed her hair dark brown. Tony Scott had to fly to Chicago and personally ask Martin Scorsese to borrow Tom Cruise for one day. Scorsese, being Scorsese, said yes because he respected the hustle. Now came the hard part, hiding the fact that 5 months had passed. Kelly wore a baseball cap in the elevator to cover her now brown hair. Tom appeared soaking wet, not for sex appeal, but because wet hair flattened down and matched his earlier look. The love scene itself? Shot almost entirely in silhouette, backlit in blue. Specifically so you couldn't see that Kelly's hair was the wrong color. A continuity nightmare became the most romantic scene in the movie. Limitations forced creativity. The 80s in a nutshell. Number 3. Every hit song was a reject nobody wanted. Top Gun's soundtrack went number 1 for 5 weeks, sold 9 million copies, and became the sound of 1986. Almost none of it should exist. Danger Zone got passed around like a cursed artifact. Jefferson Starship said no. Too military. Toto's lawyers blocked them. Bryan Adams refused, said the movie glorified war. Corey Hart only sang his own material. Rio Speedwagon's Kevin Cronin admitted the notes were too high. Kenny Loggins was already at the studio recording Playing with the Boys when he heard Danger Zone was available. He grabbed it, recorded it in one session. Career-defining hit. It peaked at number 2, blocked by Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer, but became the universal sound of adrenaline. Take My Breath Away had darker drama. Giorgio Moroder offered Berlin both songs, hoping they'd pick Danger Zone. Singer Terry Nunn wanted the ballad. Guitarist John Crawford hated it. Not their style, not their sound. He refused. The label forced them. Nunn recorded it in 2 takes. She was crying during the session because the band was imploding. The song hit number 1 in 24 countries, won an Oscar, won a Golden Globe. A year later, Berlin broke up. Crawford and Nunn never spoke again. That song destroyed the band and made Nunn's career simultaneously. 2 songs, 2 disasters. One became the jukebox of summer 1986. Number 2, a real pilot passed away filming Goose's scene. Art Scholl was a legend, U.S. National Aerobatic Champion, Hollywood's go-to pilot for impossible shots. His resume included The Right Stuff, Blue Thunder, Indiana Jones, and The Temple of Doom. On September 16, 1985, Scholl took his Pitts S-2 biplane up off the coast of Carlsbad, California. Mission: film a flat spin for the sequence where Goose and Maverick lose control. He entered the spin at 4,000 feet. Intentional, controlled. At 3,000 feet, his voice came over the radio. "I've got a problem here." At 1,500 feet, "I really got a problem." Then silence. The plane hit the Pacific. Only debris was recovered. Art Scholl was 53. The cause was never determined. Speculation ranged from camera equipment shifting the balance, to control failure, to spatial disorientation. No black box, no definitive answer. The film's end credits say, "In memory of Art Scholl." Here's what haunts people. The footage Art Scholl captured before he went down? It's in the movie. The spinning horizon, the out-of-control instrument panel, the terror of a flat spin. When Maverick screams, "I can't control it," he's echoing Art Scholl's final transmission. Every time you watch Goose's ending, you're seeing a real pilot's last moments. The aviation community created the Art Scholl Memorial Fund. His name lives on in aerobatic competitions. But his final flight is preserved in a movie millions have watched. Most without knowing the man who captured it never came home. Number 1. The Navy paid to make their own recruitment film. In summer 1986, if you walked out of a Top Gun screening, you'd find Navy recruiters in the lobby handing out pamphlets. Not a coincidence, a strategy. They caught you right as the credits rolled, adrenaline still pumping, ears ringing from jet noise, 100% convinced that flying an F-14 was the coolest job on Earth. It was the most aggressive career fair in history. Reports claim Navy aviation interest spiked 500%, though the official numbers never been confirmed. What we know for sure, Lieutenant Commander Laura Marlowe told the LA Times that 90% of new applicants that summer had seen Top Gun. Overall enlistment jumped 8%. But raw numbers miss the bigger picture. Top Gun didn't just boost recruitment, it rebranded the entire military. Less than a decade after Vietnam, the armed forces had an image problem. Top Gun erased it in 2 hours. Suddenly, the Navy wasn't about questionable foreign wars. It was about skill, speed, and being the best. For a teenager in 1986, the line between movie and career opportunity was invisible. And here's the kicker. The Navy paid for this. They didn't just rent equipment for $1.8 million. They paid Paramount $1.2 million in consultation fees. They paid for product placement in what was functionally a 2-hour recruitment ad. Both sides won. Paramount got a blockbuster. The Navy got a generation of recruits. Top Gun played at Navy recruitment events for decades. And when Top Gun Maverick dropped in 2022, the Navy ran the same playbook. Recruitment spiked again. 36 years later, Maverick's still doing exactly what he was designed to do. Make the most dangerous job in the world look like the only one worth having. And there you have it. 15 insane facts about Top Gun you never knew. From a magazine article that accidentally birthed a franchise to a Navy recruitment scheme disguised as a blockbuster. From Val Kilmer sabotaging his own audition to a legendary pilot who gave everything for one shot. From fake cockpits in Burbank to real astronauts breaking the rules. From trenches dug for Kelly McGillis to a sunglasses brand saved from extinction. Top Gun wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural reset button. Which fact shocked you most? Drop your thoughts below. And tell us, what's your favorite Top Gun scene? And while you're down there, hit that like button and subscribe, because we break down your favorite retro movies and TV shows every single week. All right, let's fly into the danger zone. See you in the next one.